Hello, my friend. Namaste. Welcome. I'm so happy that our paths have crossed today. I think that's for a reason. I have always believed that, and needless to say, I'm thrilled you're here. Today, I wanted to return to some of the thoughts that we've come back to in these types of videos that we've grown accustomed to here on the channel, where we just chat about ideas regarding mindfulness and minimalism and how we can live our lives in more holistic, grounded ways, recentering ourselves so that we can create to our fullest potential in whatever area of life we're seeking to create in. I started making videos on the topic of minimalism 3 years ago. I checked earlier this morning. I'm like, when was the first time that I did this? And it was just about 3 years ago, around 3 years. I really am not a time-oriented person at all. I like to stay out of that construct, but it was about 3 years ago. I made my first video talking about how this idea of minimalism has impacted my life in a positive way. And it's been this really interesting journey. And so I thought it'd be cool to touch base with my minimalism journey, how this tool has helped me, how it's introduced me in so many ways to inviting mindfulness into my life, and some of the things that I've learned so far. So kind of looking back over some of the things that I have come to really cherish that I've learned. Number one is that minimalism has taught me to ask why. And this is one of the most important ones. I was just quickly jotting down a few today over my coffee. I was having a little spiritual reading time, and the inspiration for this video hit me. And that was the first thing that came to my mind, was that it's taught me to ask why to everything in my life. So from the things I own to the things that I participate in or let take up time on my schedule, to how I work, to my workflow itself and how I handle juggling all of those things, and things that bring stress into my life, things that bring joy into my life. I ask myself, why is this in my life? Am I being conscious about how I'm bringing this into my life? Am I inviting it into my life, or is it just bumping into me, bumping into my life, and I'm just accepting it, and I'm not really taking a proactive role? It caused me to see that there were so many things that I was not taking any proactive role about. Like, there were stressful situations that would arise in my work. I'd get so stressed out over things I had to do, places I had to be. And I began to realize, as I embraced this idea of minimalism, what can we minimize in our lives that is no longer serving us? I began to ask, why am I doing all these things? Why do I feel the need to stress myself out? And because really it's a conscious choice. It really is. It made me ask, why do I do what I do every day? And that led to me letting go of so many things that I began to realize didn't serve me, and there was really no reason for me to be pressuring myself in the way that I was, except for the fact that in my mind I had this image of who I should be. This image of super productive Kate who can do all the things and, hustle and grind and make all this content and share it on every social media platform and do it really well, and still have tons of free time to do other things that were nourishing. And you know what? It was a fantasy. It was not real. It was not real. And what I began to realize is, why do I value that? This is the question it made me ask myself, is why do I value that? This societal idea of what success is over my own health, my own mental stability, and my own mental state of calm, that stable foundation, I'm valuing it more than all of that. I'm valuing this idea of success that's been marketed to me by society more than I value my own well-being. Why do I do that? And I let go of so much that wasn't serving me. Things that did not come from my heart. They did not start in my heart. They started on the internet or in a book or in an article or coming from some motivational speaker or some business person on YouTube or whatever. And that's not to say all advice is bad, but we have to realize our own spirit has to be the guide. We have to come back to our own soul, our own spirit, and realize we don't have to take the path that everybody takes. Maybe what we need to be focusing on is something that hasn't even occurred to us yet. So often we think we know why we're here. We think we know the direction that we should go. But really, when we return to our source, we realize it's so much bigger than us. It's so much more powerful than us, and it involves spiritual seeking, and it involves tapping into and aligning with something so much bigger than our small ideas that we've had about who we are and our limitations. This limited view of ourselves that we can let go of. So minimalism acted as a tool to help me realize that. And a lot of what I just talked about too was very much a spiritual seeking journey. So I think minimalism, it's such a subjective word, and it can mean a bunch of different things to different people. But for me, it really was a tool that I used in conjunction with spiritual seeking to realize, you know what, I can remove some of this stuff that I've stacked on top of myself that I feel is holding me back and keeping me boxed into this limited view. These demands that I hold over myself that don't come from my heart, they come from society, they come from the world's dream of what my life should be. And I'm going to decide what my life should be based on what my spirit is telling me. So that was the first thing. The second is to separate myself and my identity from material objects and ownership of things. So we can, and especially in Western society, and that's really all I can speak from because that's what I've experienced growing up where I have and living where I have, is this very, and you see it in online culture all the time, this very this deep need to identify with what you own. And the entire marketing world, the entire business world revolves around this idea. Because when you see these commercials sometimes for handbags that cost a small fortune, it's not about really the bag or whatever the thing is. An expensive item of clothing, expensive car, a place to live. It's not so much the thing itself as it is the identity that comes with being the owner of that thing. And the only reason that there's any esteem placed on being the owner of that thing is because there has been enough other people who have bought into this idea that that thing is valuable. So really, if everyone was to overnight change their opinion about that thing, fill in the blank, and decide that it's no good, now our esteem falls through the floor because it's no longer valued as an identity. So it's interesting when you think about that, because it's like there's this extra layer to so much of what is sold to us in the world. So much of what is marketed is about identity. It's about who you will be if you buy this thing, who you will be if you wear these clothes, who you will be and what you'll feel, the emotions you'll feel if you're driving this car or wearing that watch. But the truth is, all of those things are distractions pulling us away from the fact that we already are all that we need already without any of those things. Without consumerism pulling us in every which direction. We've already been given a sacred spiritual identity just as we are. And we don't need to opt into some product or ad campaign to realize that. We are already sacred. We are already valuable. And if we invest the idea of our value in a thing that we can buy, we will never find happiness. That's what I came to deeply realize. Because especially when you're younger, I think, at least for me, it was like, oh, if I only had this thing, then I'd be happy. If I could only go on this trip, then I'll be happy. If I could only own XYZ, then I'll feel fulfilled. And all it does is you're just funding your own disappointment, because those things, those material things can never hit the spot. They can never make us happy. It's always more. And the benchmark gets pushed out farther and farther and farther away. And we become reliant upon this matrix of consumerism and what can I throw my money at to make me happy, or what can I throw my resources and my time and my energy. Maybe if I worked harder, maybe if I worked all the time, maybe if I had hundreds of thousands of followers on my social media accounts, then I'd be happy. Spend your resources, spend your time, your money, your energy, and then you'll be happy. But we can't, those things won't make us happy. We could spend all our money, all our time, all our energy, and be miserable because we already were home before we started. We already have within us everything we need. And that's been given. It's not about what we did. And so that's what I really started to realize on a deeper level, was it's not about that identity. It's not about identifying or finding identity in things. And that's a big revelation in today's world. And I think a lot of us are grappling with this idea that we have an identity outside of all this stuff that society has tried to sell to us. It's not about that. There's this more holistic, deep layer of who we are that we can access through meditation and getting quiet with ourselves, finding true contentment, connecting with our families and our loved ones and people and animals and the environment, things that are really dear to us, the real things. I think we're craving that more than ever now. And I think that's also why there's this big disconnect, this sort of mass exodus from constantly being absorbed in social media. At least that's what I've noticed from many of you guys who have sent me messages and commented on my videos talking about how, you're getting away from being so much online. And I think that's wonderful, because I think when we find that stillness and we set aside all that noise, we take a step back from all of that, we can really begin to center and hear the voice inside of us. I think that's where so much of it begins. And that brings me to my next point, my next thought I wrote down, which was it helped me to break free from the digital matrix and become focused on creation. That was one of the number one hindrances for me with my craft. Was I'm a writer and I've written quite a few books. They're all linked below if you want to know more about them. But I found that I was comparing myself to others. Sometimes I would get bent out of shape looking at reviews and thinking about what other people thought of my work and what I thought of my work, and whether it was as good as the thing I made last year, or is it as good as, the book I really want to be writing, and is it living up to these expectations? And also just the aspect of marketing your books was a very all-consuming thought, making sure that I was doing everything I needed to be doing and hustling and all that hustle culture stuff. And I remember going on a hike with my dad. It was a hike that we wanted to do forever. And it was hiking down the South Kaibab Trail at Grand Canyon, spending the night at the bottom and hiking back out on the Bright Angel Trail. Phenomenal time. It was incredible. But we had no cell service. And the clocks on our phones didn't even work because there was just absolutely no signal. So nothing worked. And the only way we could tell time was actually to take my camera, take a picture, and then look at the time stamp on that photo. And it was the most cool thing ever. I was just like, this is awesome. I feel like I'm on another planet because I feel so far removed from all the noise and all the distractions. And I felt just this deep sense of inspiration. I was so inspired. I was so pumped in every way imaginable. I was just over the moon. I felt the best I had felt in the last few years of my life. And so I began to analyze, what is it about this experience? Is it that I'm hiking and I just really enjoy hiking and I feel so great? And I realized, no, it's not that at all. It's that I'm disconnected from all these distractions that vie for my attention all the time. And so even though I still market and I still use platforms such as this one to be able to connect with all of my beautiful friends, all of you. And I love being able to share and have conversations down in the comments and hear your thoughts, because it's brought so much to my practice. And there's definitely a sacred space for that within my life. But it's not this all-consuming thing where I am anxiously trying to be everywhere all at once. I don't use a phone anymore. I know that's not for everyone. Some people are able to, based on like their house setup and situations with their phone. I have a landline, so I don't need a cell phone. But I know it's not something, everyone has their own unique journey. So I'm not saying this is something that everyone should go do. But I don't use a cell phone anymore except for like making phone calls. I don't have any apps. I don't use social media except for on my computer at a very specific time of day, and that changed my life. So becoming digitally minimal was one of the biggest impacts on my life, because it transformed my relationships with my family and those in my immediate life. And it made all the connections that I was able to make online through platforms like this, meeting beautiful souls that I was able to connect with, all the more meaningful, because it wasn't like I was talking to people all the time and just seeing like everyone's lives all the time, all this like media constantly going through news feeds. It made the experience of connecting with other human beings so much more sacred and special and focused, because now I'm focused on connection, not being everywhere and having to do all the things, because we really can't do that. We're not designed for this level of multitasking, and there's so much research out there now. And I'll try to find some below and link it, but even if I don't, you probably have read some yourself about how anxiety and depression and stress and so many other things, sleep disorders and insomnia and like so many other conditions, that they're actually linking to this high level of stimulation that we're constantly exposed to through our phones, through computers, through social media. And honestly, it's in these companies' vested interest to keep us addicted to these devices because they're selling them, which that's a whole other topic for another time. And You guys have heard me talk about that before, but it's important to come back to that and realize, you know what? I have to look after my own well-being. You are going to care about your own well-being more than anyone. So it's just something to consider. Like, how can we be more mindful about the way we're using even online resources, even our phones? The last point I wrote down was that minimalism helped to free my mind from external voices from the world and to connect more spiritually. So that kind of roots back to what I was saying at the beginning of this video, that by minimizing some of the stuff that was coming at me and letting go of some of it, a lot of it, it helped me to focus more on what truly mattered, and that is spirituality, my inner world. What I was really seeking was already within me the whole time. And I still have to remind myself of that very often, because there will always be those ideas that float around in our mind, like we have to do something over there, we have to go over here, we have to buy this thing or do that or go on this trip in order to be this version of ourselves that we've set on a pedestal. But we don't have to. And we can realize that, hey, we're already successful simply because we're breathing. We exist, we're sacred, we're beautiful, we're loved fundamentally. And from that place of peace and stillness, that inner knowing, that to me is where the best adventures, the best creation, the best that you can ever find in life all flows from that place. That inner peace. And that's not a peace that you can find in the world. That's something you find in yourself. So for me, minimalism, when I first started practicing, you know, you get really focused on decluttering and stuff like that. And then you can get into the spiritual aspects of like emotional decluttering and all of that's so valuable, and you can continue going through the layers. It's not just about cleaning your house. It's about that inner work too. It's about letting go of some of the stuff that we've piled on top of our lives so high that sometimes we can't even see ourselves underneath anymore. What can we let go of? Let the light shine through, let our souls shine through and lead us to the things that truly matter, you know? So those are just a few thoughts. That's where I am in my journey these days. So I thought it would be cool to touch base. And I think it's such a cool, unique journey for everybody. So comment below and tell me, what is your own journey like? Whether you've been practicing minimalism or mindfulness or something else entirely, whatever you want to call it. How's your own path unfolding? What is this season of your life bringing to the forefront of your mind lately? I would love to hear from you. It would be such a wonderful honor. I hope this video could serve you in a positive way. I hope this message reached you and brought some light to your day. If you enjoyed it, it always means the world when you share it with someone you think would be inspired by it. Subscribe so you'll be here in the community. I'd love to see you in my next video. If you feel drawn or inspired to give to the channel in any way, you can find the link to my Patreon and my Etsy shop below. We're working on getting some really cool kind of boho mindfulness lifestyle items into the Etsy shop, but that's all coming soon. So you can go follow my shop with the link in my bio if you care to. You can also check out all my books. Those are all linked below. Thank you so much for being here, my friend. I wish you so much joy in your journey. I'll see you again. Namaste.